welcome back to The Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Today on the program, Matt Webb of Marianas Trench. This was one I was really looking forward to because back in my TV days, I had the chance to interview Marianas Trench about 4 or 5 times, all the way back to their first album. And I think basically after every album, they would tour through the city and I'd have a chance to sit down with them and chat. And so when I started this podcast, they were really one of the bands I was looking forward to connecting with because I had connected with them so many times in the past. And I was just wanting to get that excitement back of being able to hear what they're up to and just tell their story. And so I was able to do that. And I was so excited to get them so early on too. Episode 5. It's absolutely amazing. So I hope you enjoy our conversation with Matt Webb of Marianas Trench. I wanted to start back in 2016. That's the last time I had the chance to meet up with you guys. And you guys actually, I think, hold the record for the band that I've interviewed the most.
I'm sorry, that's terrible.
I think we were around 4 or 5 times, but the last time was in 2016 when you guys came through Kelowna. And you probably don't remember, but you might remember the scenario after I tell you. So the Shaw studio was in the arena. And so I came down to the green room, dressing room area just to talk to your manager and let him know I was ready to go. And just as I got there, you were coming out the door and I was like, "Oh, hey, Matt, how's it going?" You're like, "Oh, hey, I recognize you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from Shaw." And you were on the phone and you're like, "Oh, sorry, I just got to take this." And you ran off. And then I went back to the studio and the 3 guys came and you weren't there. And I'm like, "Oh, Matt not coming?" And they're like, "No, his bike actually just got stolen and he just got the phone call about it. And he's dealing with that."
Oh, that's really funny. Oh, sorry I missed the interview.
Yeah, but and then I saw a couple weeks after that on social media that you'd actually gotten your bike back after all, right?
So that was a really funny story. So I used to live in this condo and in 2016, and I had one of those like storage lockers in the parking garage like everybody's got. And it was down on like, P2, P3. And it seemed very secure, but at some point somebody like came in with a bunch of, power tools and managed to get through into my storage locker and stole my road bike. So I had a reasonably nice road bike. And it was my baby. I'd had it for years and it was stolen. And I was so disappointed. I mean, like, it was heartbreaking. I actually lost 2 bikes. They stole my mountain bike and my road bike. And the mountain bike was just a cheap thing, but I was disappointed nonetheless. And I think when I had received that call, my wife was with me. We have a close family friend who comes in and checks on our place from time to time. And she went down and checked out her storage locker. She's like, "It's been ransacked. They stole everything." And I was like, "Oh God." But to make a long story short, I like filed a police report, and incredibly, the Vancouver Police Department found my bike in like some sketchy alley downtown.
Wow.
And it was just like abandoned. It was a little bit thrashed, like it had a carbon fiber frame. It was all dinged up a little bit, but I got it back and I still ride it to this day. So it's been through the ringer. It's quite a story to that bike.
So now I get to talk to you since I didn't back then. So now we get to meet up now. So I was excited when they told me that you were going to be the one during the interview. So
that's awesome.
And I think I don't know when the first time I met up with you guys was. I'm pretty sure it was back in the Fix Me days.
Yeah, definitely.
Playing, because I have a drumstick right over there still that's signed by Ian that I've kept all these years. I think it's when you were playing a venue called The Habitat here in Kelowna.
I remember it well.
Yeah, you guys have worked your way up, right? Because you started at The Habitat just playing this little, whatever it was, 7,500 person room. And then the last time you came through, you were playing the arena.
Yeah, and by 7,500, you mean 75 people.
Or
right?
No, 75 or 100.
Or 100, yeah. It's a tiny little spot. Yeah. I mean, we've been so fortunate throughout our career to see growth in so many places. And we definitely started from the very beginning playing shows for just our parents and 5 or 6 people, and then to arenas, and Yeah, I've been very lucky, man. I don't know why it worked out that way, but it did for some reason.
And you've known Josh ever since high school, but when did music become a thing for you? What age did you start fooling around with the guitar and getting into music?
I was my parents put me into piano lessons when I was pretty young. I can't remember exact age, maybe 5, 6, 7 around there. And I did a Royal Conservatory classical piano for many years. And then, when I hit my teens, I was like, just had better things to do, and I kind of wasn't very interested in it. But I kept going with piano for a while. I completed my grade 8 Royal Conservatory, and then after that, I quit. I was always involved in music. I got into the school band. I was a trombone player and also a drummer in the school band. And then I picked up guitar later. One day my dad came home with a guitar and a little amp, and I just sort of I learned to play it. Once you have a background in piano, you can kind of pick up any instrument. So I sort of fiddled around and figured out how to play the guitar, and then just kept going with that very casually until years later I met Josh, and I actually, it's sort of a long story, but I was writing songs, and he had a studio, and he asked me if I wanted to record some songs, and we got to working together. And then one day he just asked me to join his band, and I was like, cool. So, and then I started, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but I was originally the keyboard player in Marianas Trench. We were a 5-piece. And then I took over for guitar when we went through a bit of a line adjustment, or a personnel adjustment, and then that was in, like, I don't know, 2001 or something. So I've since then I've been playing guitar.
Yeah. And were your parents musical at all, or did they put you in piano just for something to do at a young age?
My grandfather was a big musician. My dad's dad, he was a killer piano player, and he played instruments of all sorts. In their house, they had like an alto saxophone and a banjo and a guitar and a piano, and he played a lot. So as a kid, I was around that quite a bit. My dad plays guitar, but he's not very good. He just, he was a hippie, so he would just sit around the campfire with a beer in his Volkswagen van and strum some chords. My mom's not particularly musical, and nobody else really in my family is. So besides a couple of cousins. So yeah, it was mostly, I think, sort of skipped a generation and passed down from my grandfather.
So did you find it pretty natural, especially when you started picking up the guitar?
Yeah. Piano, I always was, like, not to toot my own horn, but I was always pretty good at piano. It just sort of came, like, I enjoyed it. I didn't really enjoy the classical realm. I didn't like classical music very much. I appreciated the intricacies and how hard it was to write and stuff, but it wasn't very interesting for me to play. I didn't like listening to it or anything. And then when I started playing guitar, of course, I was listening to Nirvana, and I'll like learn to play this song and learn to play that song, and yeah, just kind of, I played a bunch. I was a multi-instrumentalist. I played in the band. I enjoyed jazz band a lot. Played drums, played trombone in the jazz band, which is actually where Josh and I met. I was the trombone player, and he at the time was playing guitar, and he was seated right next to me, and that's how we hit it off.
Okay. And I noticed that you actually have some credits playing trombone on some albums.
Yeah, so we all 4 of us play like a couple of whack instruments, and every album we're always trying to incorporate those in some way, just like one little spot where it's like, I played the trombone and now I get a credit on the album. And Mike was a trumpet player and I was a trombone player, and Ian played a few weird things too, so we all tried to, like, Josh and I have always wanted to do like some brass sections where we were actually playing all the instruments. Unfortunately, neither of us are good enough to do it, but here and there's some spots where we've been able to incorporate some silly brass instruments.
What song has the most trombone on it then, would you say?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to rack my brain and think of this one. We got there was some I think there was some horns we played on the last record. You know what? I can't even think of the songs. Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And so you guys formed, as far as the current lineup goes, around 2004, right?
Yeah, I think Mike joined the band in 2003 or 4. He was the last one out.
at that point, you go in to record Fix Me in around 2005. It was released in 2006.
Yep.
And so what was the feeling in the band at that point? Were you guys pretty focused on becoming a band and doing this as a career, or was it still just sort of fooling around and just wanting to play music?
No, I mean, we had signed, we had a record deal. So once we got our record, with 604 Records in Vancouver, and once we had a record deal, we were like, oh, great, we're all going to be driving Lamborghinis pretty soon, right? And smooth sailing from here on out. But little did we know, it's sort of when the work begins is when you get a record deal. And so yeah, we got a budget for that album. We put the album together, and our intention was to put it out there and see what the hell happened. And we toured it relentlessly for many years, and to the point of it almost broke the band. We toured so much, we were so sick of seeing each other, but eventually it started to take off. In the our last single off Fix Me was called Shake Tramp, and that song did quite well for us, particularly the music video on MuchMusic. And as a result of that, we had a nice foundation set for the release of our next record, and then all of a sudden was Cross My Heart was the next single off of that, and that sort of took off, and it's been nonstop ever since.
As far as Fix Me goes, it was a pretty straightforward album. Now, since then, there's been a lot more theatrics to the music.
Sure.
When
yeah.
you were recording Fix Me, and Josh's process is it can be quite intense, especially nowadays, right? But when you were recording Fix Me, what was his sort of mentality at that point in the studio? Was it similar to what he is now?
When we started recording Fix Me, we were setting out to be a rock band. We were like, we're gonna, it was just early 2000s. Rock, alternative rock was, that was what everybody was listening to. And we were gonna be a rock band, and we put out that album, and it's lots of guitars, lots of smashy drums. We modeled it on the Foo Fighters, and Color in the Shape by the Foo Fighters was sort of a big influence of ours on that album. And you can hear, the tempo is all over the place. It's really aggressive, and it's and then what was happening was that Josh's songwriting, when we went to release these songs to the radio, the responses that we were getting was that the writing was too pop sounding for rock radio and too rock sounding for pop radio. So we were sort of in this radio no man's land,
right?
And which is why that album didn't translate well at radio. It was quite unsuccessful there. And we realized that we were going to have to sort of move in one direction or the other if we were to, continue to do what we were doing, and to be fruitful, to make some money from it, because we wanted to do this. This is what we want to make a living at it. And at the time, rock music was kind of like on its way out a little bit. So Josh sort of geared his songwriting in a little more of the pop direction, which was always the way he was going anyways. And he sort of came into his own as a songwriter, and started just being a little more focused on the sound and what he wanted to achieve. And it paid off. Our next record was much more focused and commercially viable, and the fans seem to like it a lot. There's a lot of people that tell us, "Oh, your stuff doesn't sound like the old rock stuff that you do," and that's true. But we were evolving, we were adapting, and not only that, but like, you got to remember that on Fix Me, it's our first album. So Josh had his entire life to write that album, and then the next album, he only had 6 months, right? So it was like, and at that time, it's like, okay, well, what are my influences now? What am I listening to now? What kind of music do I like now? And that was, you can definitely hear the transition, and you can hear it in the writing for sure.
And you talk about how Fix Me almost broke the band because of the amount of touring and stuff. Now that was 2006, you released that. And then Masterpiece Theater was 2009.
Yeah.
Now it felt like such a long time. Like, I was a fan of Fix Me. I knew you guys from that. And I don't know why it felt so long. Only 3 years, which isn't, an insanely long time between albums, but it really did feel like a long time.
It was a long time. And the reason it was a long time was because we were just touring the whole time. We did tours back and forth and back and forth and back and forth across Canada in a van, 4 guys in a van, all in one hotel room, which is why, it puts a lot of pressure on your relationships with everybody, because you're just spending so much time together, and there's no personal space. You're sharing a bed with another human being every night, and it's just tiring. And not only that, but you're driving in like Canadian winters, and you're never sure whether you're going to make it to the venue alive the next day, and it's a little overwhelming. But what kept us motivated was that we were always seeing a little bit of growth. Every show we went to, if we would play a city a second time, we would see some growth in the audience. If instead of 6 people, there might be 12 people, and instead of 12 people, there might be 24 people, and it just kept sort of getting bigger and bigger. And then every once in a while, we'd have a little bit of something lucky would happen, like we'd get a spin on a Toronto radio station, or we'd sell a couple CDs, or we get something on a soundtrack or something, and we get these little victories, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and better. And we never had one thing we talk about a lot with the guys is that, like, Marianas Trench never had a stroke of dumb luck. Like we never had a super hit single or a big opening slot for a huge band or anything. Every victory was achieved on our own, and just through hard work, perseverance, and the love and the help of our fans as well, right?
Right. And going into Masterpiece Theater, did you guys have a little break? Like, did Josh sort of go away for that 6 months and sort of write on his own, and then you guys came back into the studio?
Yeah, we took a little bit of time off after some of the tours, and then just kind of didn't see each other for a while, and then remotivated ourselves, and got back in the studio and started working again.
And Masterpiece Theater is quite ambitious. So when Josh started bringing stuff to you, what did you guys think as a band, as far as how sort of monumental it was sounding as compared to Fix Me?
Yeah. Well, I loved it, man. I mean, I've always been a fan of Josh's writing, and I just trusted him to, I knew he was going to come up with something spectacular, and he did. And it was such an honor to be a part of it in the studio. And we had so much fun putting it together. And you know what, it was good because it was focused, and we recognized that there was potential there to be successful, to make a living, to tour, and it was, we needed to do that in order to live the life we wanted, and it was the right move to sort of go in that direction. And I always loved it, man. I was like, this is great music. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoy being in the studio. I enjoy listening to it. So I wasn't really like, these are good songs, I don't care what genre this is. It's good music that I'm proud of, and proud to put my name on, and I'm just happy to be there, man.
And you guys always have some sort of theme going into an album. So does that help in keeping things fresh and keeping you interested and motivated?
Totally. The theme thing is great because it gives you like a loose, box to work within. And from that theme, you can pull inspiration for everything from like stage props to the clothes you're going to wear on stage, to the sounds you want to use on the record, the instruments that you're using. And it just, like, I'd never thought about doing that before, but Josh was sort of into this whole idea, and it started to make a lot of sense to me. I was like, this is smart, because then problem with like creative people is you're just like inspired by everything, and you get so, like, there's so much coming in, and it's hard to sort of like focus it. And I think when you're working within a theme, then all of a sudden you've got these loose boundaries that you can work within, and it makes it fun. And you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna stick to this. So what do I do now? And that's how we did it.
And when I've talked to Josh in the past, he's talked about just the music that's in his head. And sometimes when he brings it to you guys, it's just this whole mash that he's trying just to spit out of what he hears in his head. So is that an interesting process sometimes?
It's hilarious, man. Yeah, it's he'll come to me and be like, dude, so like picture this drum beat, like doom 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 doom, doom. And I'm like, okay. It's like, now this melody, like, I don't understand, Josh. You got to put this down on paper for me. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And so and when you first hear Josh's ideas, they're so crazy, and and you'll, especially when we're starting in the studio, because what he'll do is he'll just draw out like a guide guitar track or drum track or something, and then just have some, you know, piano certain parts over top of it, and you listen to it and like you're like, this sounds terrible, what are you doing? And then slowly all these layers get added, these pieces come in, the puzzle comes together, and you're like, oh, that's what you meant, and it all makes sense. But and the funny thing is that at the beginning he's got that all in his head, so he hears everything, but nobody else understands that. So you know, you just have to kind of trust that he knows what he's doing, and obviously he does.
So does that make the process a little scary, or does that make it a lot more fun than if you just had to go in and kind of track your guitars the way they're written down and not have to deal with that?
It's great. What's nice is that, you know, Josh has sort of got the blueprint in his head, and then he comes into the studio with the rest, Mike and Ian and I, and we like, okay, well, let's put this together. And then we start chipping away at different parts and different pieces, and until it becomes Marianas Trench. And it's a lot of fun. I never, like, you know, I've like I said, I've always been such a giant fan of Josh's writing that I just trust whatever he's got in his brain, and I'm just there to help bring it to fruition.
And after the release of Astoria in 2015, you guys went out to tour the world, basically. What is it? Canada, United Kingdom, France, Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands. Is that the dream?
Yep. that is the dream. Just playing in Europe, playing, you know, we had some shows in where else were we at? Korea, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. Yeah, we were all over the place. It's so fun, man. I love to travel, and I try to be I try to take in as much as I can, you know, in every city that we go to. It's hard to be a tourist when you're on tour because you're working and the day is long. You know, we've got commitments all throughout the day, from sound checks and meet and greets to, you know, making sure the accounting's in order, the crew's got food, and you know, getting a shower, getting the bus driver sorted, all that sort of stuff. But if you can be efficient with your time, get up early, you know, every city's got some kind of restaurant to eat at or some site to see, and I typically will like try and, you know, get out of bed first and roll to whatever it may be. The alternative is you can like just drink a lot and sleep in and do nothing, you know, and I think that a lot of people like to do that, and I'm cool with that. But for me, it's more like dial the booze back a bit, and so that I'm happy getting up first thing in the morning and enjoying my day and living life.
Yeah, really staying present, right? Because I imagine if you kind of go the partying route and the sleeping in route, you won't know where you are. Like it'll just be the same old day every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And it, you know, that was fun for a little bit when we were a bit younger, but nowadays I'm like, I'm not interested in that, man. You know, for example, the last time we were in Europe and we were, I got a great story. We were playing in Munich, I think, or at least we had a day off in Munich. I don't know if we played there. Maybe we played there, but I like BMWs. Okay, I'm a BMW fan. So the BMW museum is in Munich, Germany. So I decided when the tour bus was rolling into Munich first thing in the morning, it was about 8:30 in the morning. I asked the bus driver, so would you mind dropping me off at the BMW museum? Because it was on the highway on the way into town.
Oh, okay.
And he said, no problem. So the tour bus pulls over at the BMW museum, and I get out and I'm like, awesome. So I go and I like walk through this beautiful museum, and I look at all their, you know, their beautiful cars and airplanes, because they're an airplane company back in the day. And then at the end of the tour, there's like this, you go to this showroom where they have all these brand new BMWs and Rolls Royces and stuff. And I'm just dreaming of these cars that I could never afford. And then I noticed at the end of the showroom, there's like a little rental car desk. And I walk up to it. I'm like, excuse me, like, what's the deal here? And the guy speaks perfect English. He's like, oh yeah, well, you can just rent whatever BMW you want. And I was like, is it expensive? And he's like, no, not particularly. And so like, I don't know if you're a car guy, but like BMW makes this thing called the M5. Okay, right. It's got like 600 horsepower, and it's like the fastest 4-door car in the world. And I was like, could I rent one of those? And he's like, yeah, man, no problem. And it was only like it was a couple $100, but I think it was like no more than $200 Canadian for 3 hours. And that's a lot of money, but to rent your dream car in Germany, I was like, I'm going to do this. So I rent this car, and then I get like, I hop out of the BMW museum, and you're literally like right onto the Autobahn.
Right.
And you can just drive as fast as you want. And the guy was like, tell you what, I'll pre-program in some destinations. He's like, do you like apple pie? I was like, yeah, I like apple pie. He's like, okay, we'll go to this place. So it's like a 150-kilometer drive to this place. I'm like, 150 kilometers, this is gonna take me all day. And the guy's like, no, it's not. And so I get onto the Autobahn and I'm driving this 600 horsepower BMW at like 200 kilometers an hour. And I'm like, "Ah!" and then I get there and I'm like, oh, let's have a slice of apple pie, stare at the German Alps for a little while, and then head back to the bus. And it was like the greatest day of my life.
Wow.
So the moral of that story is that there is so much fun to be had, like beyond the actual show and the job, if you just like are motivated to try and find these opportunities, right?
And do you ever pull the rock star card to get into somewhere where maybe the public isn't allowed to go that you really want to get to?
Very seldomly, maybe. I mean, it doesn't work most of the time because, especially when you're not in Canada, because nobody knows who the hell we are. But every once in a while, get away with a little bit of murder. But yeah.
Is there one you can think of?
Oh boy.
The top one that like is something that you wouldn't have done unless
I'm sort of we had a funny one happen in London, England one time when we went to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant at a very schwanky hotel called the Savoy. So in London, there's this beautiful old hotel that's been there like since before wartime called the Savoy Hotel. My grandmother used to go there, like, or used to dream about going there. She grew up in England. We went there. And so Gordon Ramsay has a restaurant there at the Savoy. It's called the Savoy Grill or something. It's super schwanky, super expensive. And we're like, okay, well, when in London, we're going to go and check this out.
Right.
So we go to this restaurant and we're with Josh, and Josh's last name is Ramsay. So we check in and he's like, he's the only, it was complete fluke. Like he happens to be the first guy in line for no reason other than that he's just standing there. So he walks up to the clerk or the hostess and says, I'd like to come for dinner with my friends here. You know, there's 8 of us. And they're like, what's your name? And he's like, oh, it's Josh Ramsay. And they're like, oh, Mr. Ramsay, hold on one second. And then like 2 seconds later, we get escorted into this, like the Queen's booth in the kitchen where it's like this beautiful, you know, private dining area where we've got this view of the chefs and the steaks and everything that they're doing. And it's like, you know, Marilyn Monroe has been there and the Queen of England eats there. And I'm like, okay, why the hell are we in this room? And we never quite figured out why, whether it was like they thought he was of some relation to Gordon Ramsay, the owner of the restaurant, or was it that they actually knew the band and they recognized us and they didn't say anything about it? To this day, I have no clue.
Oh, really?
All I know is that we had like the meal of a lifetime, and it cost a mortgage payment, but they took like, you know, they're like, oh, we'll cover this for you, cover that, and you know, it still was gazillions of dollars. But it was again one of these opportunities that just like it was crazy, man. Like it's a story I'll be telling my children one day.
Yeah. And another story before I forget, I want to talk about MuchMusic, the MuchMusic Video Awards. You mentioned MuchMusic before. Who always came up with the entrances?
It was awards? a group decision. We were just like, we would sit down a couple months before the MMVAs and be like, all right, what are we going to do to top last year's entrance? And we would just come up with some ridiculous idea. And we'd be like, okay, can we zip line from the top of the CN Tower to the MuchMusic building? And then, or okay, no, we can't do that. All right, can we rappel from a helicopter onto Queen Street from above the MuchMusic building? No, okay. And then we would just keep going down from there until eventually we figure out something that we didn't necessarily require any expensive permits for, or wasn't going to put our lives in any sort of immediate danger. And usually it was some kind of really uncomfortable, inconvenient, embarrassing outfit related thing. And whatever it was that really put us the most out of our comfort zone was the idea that we would choose. And from there, we would just figure out how to do it and show up and embarrass ourselves.
And did you have to clear it through MuchMusic before you did it?
Occasionally we did, and occasionally we didn't. Sometimes they knew what we were doing, and other times we would just sort of keep it on the DL. And usually they appreciated it. Other times, when we didn't tell them, they didn't. There was one particular entrance that we did where, for whatever reason, just Josh and I went to the MMVAs, and we had a pillow fight with some like models on a bed. And it was really like very, looking back on it now, maybe it's it was a little over the top. But what happened was that we had these like feather pillows, and the host of the MuchMusic host, like, gosh, I can't remember his name, Tyrone, jumps onto the bed with us and proceeds to like get in on the pillow fight. Little did we know these are like feather pillows, and they exploded as we hit each other. And so there were feathers like just everywhere, and they've got this pristine looking red carpet, and like Tyrone was in this like beautiful black tuxedo.
Oh.
And we just covered him in white feathers, and like he couldn't get them off. So for the rest of the show, he would just look terrible because he would look like a chicken because he was covered in feathers. And we didn't run that one by them, so they weren't too happy about that. But sorry.
Was there any that you ran by them that you had to dial back because they said no, that's not happening?
No, I think they're,
No?
you know, I got to hand it to MuchMusic. They were always very accommodating, and seemed to let us roll with it for the most part. Yeah.
Now let's talk about your solo stuff. Your first album was in 2011. Was it just you sort of wanting to stretch your wings a bit and just do something a little different?
Yeah, exactly. I just had some time. I was, you know, I'd always been a songwriter, and I was like, I'll just put out some stuff. It wasn't, you know, it was like, it was just something to do. And honestly, I wasn't really concerned with how it reacted and whether, you know, it wasn't depending on it for, you know, financial reasons or anything like that. I just, I just wanted to try it out, and, you know, it wasn't super well received, and it was never like, I didn't really care, to be honest with you. I was just kind of like, I'm gonna put out some songs and see how it goes. And, you know, I might do it again sometime, but I might not. I just, whatever. It was just something to do to pass the time.
And so what was that like then? Was it almost like when you were a teenager in your bedroom, like writing music, not having the stress of it, not having to worry, not wondering how it's going to hit with fans, just doing music for you?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Yeah, it was just a nice creative outlet. You know, we had a little downtime in the band, and I just felt the creative juices flowing, and I wanted to do something for myself.
Now, how lucky do you guys feel to have found each other? Because you guys have seemed to just have found the perfect group to make it all work.
I don't know. We're really lucky to get together and find one another, and we have a lot of fun. It's, you know, it's a family of four guys. Relationships not without its ups and downs, just like in any relationship. But we respect each other very greatly, and we love each other very much, and we just we have a lot of fun doing what we're doing. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon.
Yeah. And when was the last time the four of you were together actually doing something musical, whether it's writing, recording, playing, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, COVID obviously has shut things down a bit, but the last thing we had was we did a live stream performance from the Commodore in Vancouver. Right. It was part of a Live Nation series. And that was the last time I saw all four of us at once. I think that's the last time we've been in the same room. But I mean, we talk to each other all the time. I was chatting with Josh this last night just before, just about this and that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing the guys again, man. You know, COVID's obviously been a real disaster for the music industry, but it'll be over soon. We'll be back.
Yeah, exactly. And are there any other plans to do any more live streams?
Possibly, yes. I don't love doing them. I mean, nothing can recreate the rambunctious craziness of a live concert, but the live streams are fun. It's funny. They're just a lot of work to prepare and get everything ready, and unfortunately, like, in order for us to put on a show, like, we require a lot of, like, we need crew and we need gear, and it's like, it's a big expense to put it all together just for a live stream show. But the last one was really well received, and the fans they were awesome about it, and we thought it turned out really well. So I would say probably, but I don't know, man. I just want to get on the stage and play a real show.
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine that it's going to be pretty crazy when music comes back, because fans are just going to be insane because they just want to see live music, right?
It's going to be crazy, man. It's going to be crazy. I actually have a bit of anxiety about it because I'm like, wow, you know, like, when it does come back, like, every venue is going to be booked solid, full of.
That's what I was wondering.
Every band's going to be on tour. and from a logistical standpoint, it's a little bit stressful because like every crew member is going to be busy, every bus is going to be taken up, every rental shop is going to be empty, and like, but it's going to be great from a fan perspective. It's going to be awesome. So leave the worries to us, and you guys just enjoy it, because it's like it's going to be cool. And I can't wait to go to a live show, man. I go to live shows all the time, not my own, I mean, like, to watch, and I'm dying for some live music.
And Phantoms hit in 2019, and you guys had a chance to do a pretty extensive tour for it. So did COVID halt that, or were you guys kind of at the tail end and kind of going into thoughts of the next album?
We were at the tail end. We were at the very end of it. We had a couple shows. I think the last show we played ever was in Halifax sometime in January or February of 2020. And we had a couple of East Coast dates because we hadn't made it out far east on the Phantom cycle, so we had to get out there for a few shows, and then that was it. Our plan was to shut down and start working in the studio, and then COVID happened. So yeah. So
is Josh continually writing? Are you guys talking about that?
Yeah, we're talking about a lot. We haven't been in the studio together yet, but Josh has been. He's been writing. He has been talking about getting this all together again. So we will as soon as we can.
And is it in his home still that you'll be recording?
No, we do have. He has a studio out in an industrial area in Vancouver that we work out of all the time, and we'll also probably work out of his. He actually moved recently. He moved through COVID, and we'll probably work out of his new place too.
And is there any sort of theme that you can talk about that sort of...
Not that I can discuss at this moment. There is a theme forming, yes, but I can't, not at liberty to say.
Right. And I guess there's really no dates because it depends on when you guys can actually get back together and start the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. And frankly, it's not really in our best interest to release anything at the moment, because we need to go out to tour to support it. And, any music that we would put out right now, I don't know if it would get its... I don't know if we would be able to promote it as strongly as we would like to, given the circumstances. So I think that, there's going to be some stuff trickling out over the next little bit. I know, I know there's a few surprises coming, but as terms of a new Trench record, it'll be a little bit.
Like you say, every album, there's a different theme. So it's not like you're getting bored with everything. So does the excitement just sort of rejuvenate every time you go into a new album and that process?
Yeah, this band is never boring. It's not a boring job. I'm excited. I love what I do. I'm so lucky to do it. I just can't wait to see the guys. They're my family, I can't wait to be in a studio working together, be on the road together. COVID has been like, it sucked so much for everybody, but for our industry in particular, it's been pretty brutal. So it'll be nice when it's over and we can get back to work.
And what's it like in Vancouver as far as venues go? Have there been any that have shut down at this point, like for good?
Oh, for good. A couple. There's a friend of mine owned a venue downtown, and they had to shut down, which was pretty sad. It was a great spot, but I don't know, man. We'll see what happens once everything gets back to normal. Who's been able to tough it out?
Like you say, when music does come back, like pretty much every artist out there is going to want to tour. So it might be an opportunity for more venues to pop up, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Like I say, I've loved talking to you guys over the years. You're all the way from Fix Me onward. I've just been thrilled every time you guys have rolled through town, and I've had a chance to catch up with you and just talk about the current project.
Thank you, man. Thank you for your support over the years. I mean, you've been awesome for us. So thank you. It's great to see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, Brandon, you take care of yourself.
See you again.
Cheers.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much again for listening. We really appreciate it. We hope that you will like, share, subscribe, follow us on whatever streaming service you're listening on, and be sure to join us next time when we'll meet up with musician Ben DeHaan. Until then, have a great day, and thank you for listening to The Music Made Me.